Oh, this is pleasant. You could feel the history coming from the walls in here.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
Not when the history fights back.
Hey Bruno, congratulations on winning the 11-second club for October. My name's Leigh Rens. I'm a mentor at Animation Mentor, and I'll be doing your critique of your shot for having won. A little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for 20 years now in LA, and before that I was in South Africa. So that's where the accent is from, in case you're curious. The last 3 projects I worked on, I worked at Universal Studios on a ride form for Universal theme parks here in LA, which is Secret Life of Pets 2. They're busy doing a second feature for that. So I worked on the ride for that, and just recently wrapped up on Jumanji and Clash of the Clans commercial. So that's Jumanji 2 that'll be coming out. I do previews and key posts, so I sometimes work on camera work and on sharpening the storytelling for the director for that movie and also for that commercial as well. So that's me in a nutshell. If you want more about me and some of my previous history and stuff, you can go check out my website at leighrens.com, which is just my name.com, and you can see some of my older work if you wanted to have a look at that. Cool. Okay, so I've got a bunch of notes for you. Went in and checked this out, analyzed it, tried to come up with stuff. And what I can say to you is congratulations, in the sense that you're giving me something really challenging to critique. I'm really happy with what you've come up with here, in the sense that I don't think there's too much I'd change, but I've come up with a few things that I think we could do to maybe improve it or plus it. So this idea of plussing something is just taking something and just trying to improve it one step at a time, so that we can just plus it or make it as best as we possibly can. So that's kind of the goal. We're not after perfection. Perfection is the enemy of the good. So it's kind of this concept of plussing is just really just to bring that good in there and just say, okay, if I tweak this, is it going to be better? And that's kind of what we're gonna do with this one. Okay, so my first note for you. But before we get to that, let's just play it through and talk about what is actually working really well.
Pleasant. You could feel the history coming from the walls in here.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
Not when the history fights back.
Yeah. So we have, I'm going to call these characters Shane and Ryan, which are from the original Supernatural TV show, where the dialogue comes from. So let me just figure out who's who. So Shane's conjuring over the skull, and Ryan is the guy who's nervous about being there. So that's basically the idea. But my and what we have here. So my first impression on this, which is probably kind of an important departure point for us on this, as we get into the critique on it, is 3 points, right? That's what you'd want if you're making a movie and you have a shot like this that's got the delivery, and there's a lot to communicate in it. You'd want your audience just to keep it as simple as you can by noticing 3 things, and then you're out of there. There's directors that focus on this with camera, so they'll actually take a camera, look at something like A, B, C, and then out of the shot into another shot. Brad Bird's famous for doing that, so are other directors as well. So that's not what we're doing here, and that's not where I'm going to go with this. But essentially what happened when I hit play on this one is that it was the first initial take on the shot was scanning all over the shot with my eyes to figure out what's going on. This guy's looking around. There's a very rich background in there with all these artifacts on the walls, and the theme of the skull in the back and the skull on the table, and the 2 characters. And the one character's focused on the skull on the table, and he's like getting his hands ready to see if he's got what conjuring he can do on the skull or whatever. And we've got our other character in the background just noticing everything. So I got that from your shot almost instantly, which is great communication. But the clarity of where to look could be just a little cleaner, I feel, and we'll get into that in the notes. From there, we do get the apprehension of the one character looking around, and we do get the communication of the other character busy with the skull on the table. So that communicates really clearly. Other things that you got really, really well is the temperature of the performance in terms of the dialogue that's spoken. That's really on point, so to speak. So it really plays at the level that if you listen to the dialogue, you've taken your time and you've listened to this dialogue really carefully, you can definitely sense that level. The amount that the mouth is open, all that stuff plays exactly to the level of the dialogue. So that's really well done. Also, the way the characters look around, the speed of the transitions from poses, from one storytelling pose to the others, all works really well in a unified way. You got the one performance, all the action, that dies down, this one takes over, and then this one dies down, this one takes over again. So you got this great handoff of energy. There's some great expression inside some of the stuff. So one of the things that I noticed that I really liked was this, where he flares his eyes open, like really kind of thing, as he's talking to him. But he doesn't want to take his eyes off the skull, so his focus remains on here. So it's kind of really, really nicely done in that sense. Okay, so that's my overall impression of what's been done. So let's get to those 3 points and just talk about what I'd do in the beginning here if this was my shot. I'd come in here and I've done a draw over on this here. So I've got their eye line connecting, them looking at each other. And then, so I think the opening of the shot, they should be looking at each other. So it's looking at the guy, and then, so you've got that connection between the two characters. So you've got one character here, you've got that connection between them, and then they both focus on the skull. So that's my next pose for you, is they both come in here, and then they both focus on the skull, right? And you can maybe change, his head angle over here. So he's looking, so it's a bit more obvious even, that they're looking at the skull, right? And so it's basically looking down. There we go. Something like that, right? Let's just come in here. Let me just wipe that out there. There we go. Right, so they're both looking at the skull. And that way, just in 12 frames, the first opening part of the shot, you've kept the audience's attention on the two characters and then focused on the skull. So you've got that ABC, those 1, 2, 3 hits, and you're into the shot a lot cleaner. Would be my feeling on that. So that's my suspicion for myself. If this was my shot, I'd be thinking, yeah, let me try that out. Let me see if that's gonna plus the shot, just make it a little cleaner coming into it. And then from there, we can just almost keep it the same way as you have it. I think the rest plays really well. And from here, I'm just going to go into the notes of the differences between the two characters and how to think of their performances. So looking at Ryan, his pose is closed and uncomfortable. And you even have in here rubbing the back of his neck like he's feeling uncomfortable, which is on mark, absolutely on point with that as well. And Shane's pose is more relaxed and focused. So those are the contrasts of the two poses. So for Ryan's pose, what I'm getting from him, he's looking everywhere, he's uncomfortable. And that to me means that if you're uncomfortable, you become defensive and you close your pose in, right? So you'd kind of defend yourself. You put your arms in front of yourself. You'd pull your body in tight or close it in a little bit because you don't want stuff coming in. You want to avoid touching anything on these walls kind of thing, which is a great way to play it. And you've got that in there. You've got that in there, but you could push that a little bit more. So you kind of, you can have this idea of like, I call it umbrella arms, where the arms open like an umbrella, and you could pull those in to get that feeling of closing in, of withdrawing from the surroundings kind of thing. And he could notice something and lift a hand, almost like not quite reaching his mouth, but just almost like up a little higher, as he looks at something. And that brings me to another note, my second note for you. Well, not second note for you, but on Ryan, his eyes are looking at the ceiling more than they're looking at the sides. And we see most of the sculptures or most of the artifacts or the curios on the wall. Most of those are kind of on the wall, above his eye line, but his eyes aren't looking at them. It's almost like they're looking past. So we just need a couple of hits maybe on like one on this wall or one on the other wall, where he just notices, he makes connection with some, especially maybe if it's one of those sculptures where the eyes are going to come on, And I know later on in the shot where the eyes glow, you can maybe have one that's really close here, where the eyes are a bit bigger, and he can connect with that one before the eyes come on or whatever. And then later on in the shot, those eyes can glow, and that could be, that could play a little nicer, maybe, I don't know. But those are the ideas. Those are the ideas that are swimming around in my head. Okay, switching over to Shane, and you've got some great stuff happening with his arms, right? Sorry, that's just my phone going. It'll go off now in a second. So, on Ryan with his arms, you've got that great breaking of joints thing happening there, which is really cool. And that phone's annoying. Hold on a sec. There we go. It's gone. Okay, so you got some great breaking of joints happening on there. So that performance to me is feeling really powerful. And you got the hand thing happening there. Where the fingers go and all that. I really love what you've done there. But the one thing that doesn't play for me is just towards the end here. And I went and just corrected what I thought. So this idea here, where this line on the hand here, and with the fingers, kind of felt a little flat for me. So what I did is, on this pose, just one ahead of that, I went and did a drawing on it, and I just made this area on the hand, gave it a bit of volume so that you could almost feel like one of the knuckles, so you get the roundness of the hand a little. So even though it's straight with the hand, right, and the fingers are coming in like that, you still get that roundness. So even though this line is straight with the arm, you still feel the roundness of that hand. So that's just one of the things there. And then when this hand pulls back here, so you've got this great opening and flare of the hand, right? But when it pulls back, it kind of goes to this weird angle. It's almost like, and I felt if I took on that pose, when I acted it out, I felt my hand couldn't do that to try and pull back. It would just feel too uncomfortable, too kind of unnatural. And there's that hand there. So this pose, I'm not I would, if you took this pose here, right? So that hand there, and I think if you just clocked it, if you just, so I'm just going to come in here with like a red, not a red, we'll go for green. If you just clocked it so that it's more this kind of thing, to me that would feel a bit more natural, because that's more plausible that he, if I do this with my hand and then it would roll. So instead of it doing, instead of it going like this kind of thing, getting into this awkward, bending back, it feels like the hand's bending back at that angle. To me, it would just open and it would roll. So it would come in that way. So that's kind of what I would do on that pose, just to get it to on that hand. So that's really just a technical note, really, just to get that to be fluid and still feel natural. And that's going to be about it. The last thing I wanted to mention is just this delivery at the end here, and this is something. So let's just hit play on this.
Not when the history fights back.
So when he goes, the history fights back, right? It's almost like if he does this. So if he, he's leaning and he's putting his hands in the same direction. So it's the history fights back kind of thing, right? And I know you're trying to get some space between him and the other character that's over here, and that's fine. But to me, I'd bring the hands over so he's with the hands, and then when he pushes the hands out, I'd push the body back. So it's like fights back. And what that does is it just creates a little bit of an opposing action, and it makes that action stronger. And that delivery will have a bit more impact. It'll just lift the delivery just that little bit, just give it a little bit more oomph at the end. So that would be my thoughts on the Suffice Plus in the shop for myself. So hopefully that helps you out, man. It was a great fun trying to find stuff for this one to really plus it. What a challenge and a great piece of animation. So I wish you well, man, and all the best. You have a great one. Thanks, Bruno. Cheers, man. Bye.